Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Maya Linnell joining us. Hi Maya.
Hi, Jackie. It's lovely to be here tonight.
And Maya's been involved a few times before, so great to have you back.
It's always nice to come back and chat books with you. I know that you're a big fan and such a big supporter as well, so very much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks. So, a little bit about Maya for those who don't know her. Maya grew up in a small country town, climbing towery gum trees and reading her way through her family's bookshelves before discovering a never ending supply of novels at the local library. She found her feet in journalism, working at a rural newspaper before. I can't even say the word that they've used there before moving into public relations and now fiction writing and blogging for Romance Writers Australia. Maya currently lives in rural Victoria with her husband and three children. So, as I said, thanks for joining us. And your latest book, which I can see on the wall there, your poster, and I've got my copy there, you've got your copy there, Paperback Hill. So I just wanted to mention I've recently read it and really loved it. I loved the flowers. It reminds me you're a big Instagrammer, and I could just imagine your garden and everything from all the photos you share from that.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. It is really lovely to be able to write about the things that I love, and
Mm.
gardening certainly is right up there with, one of my greatest pleasures in life is to put seeds in the ground, give them a bit of care, a bit of love, a bit of attention, and see them transform into beautiful flowers. And even to see the folks at Allen and Unwin were really, really cheeky and surprised me with this wonderful front cover that has my own garden and
Yeah, I
my
was
own.
going to ask you that if that was your garden. Mm.
Yeah, it was the loveliest surprise when they sent through the cover roughs and it had the dahlias on there. And it
Mm.
was a slightly different photograph that I'd taken from a different angle that the wonderful cover designer, Nada, had pinched my Instagram and surprised me with, which was just
Yeah, that's
the
great.
best.
Yeah, that must have been great to see that on there. And I just wanted to mention as well to people watching that thanks to Alan and Unwin, if you ask a question in comments, just type it in comments, you'll have a chance to win a copy of Paperback Hill. So, Maya, do you want to start off by telling us a bit about Paperback Hill?
Yeah, absolutely. So Paperback Hill it came out in June in paperback and ebook and audiobook with Alan Unwin. It's my fourth novel, and it's called a linked standalone. So people that pick up Paperback Hill don't have to have read the other three books. But if they have, they will recognise a few of the familiar characters because each of my books centre on a different sister within the McIntyre family. And the very lovely lady on the front cover here of Paperback Hill is Diana McIntyre. Now, she is a mother of four boys. She's got one that's a future cricket star. She's got a set of twins and then a little one called Leo. She has a dream of starting a dahlia farm. And for her, it's a really good way of dealing with grief, because I won't spoil it by telling you exactly or telling the readers exactly what happened, but all of a sudden she finds herself with some pretty serious issues in her life that she needs to turn to nature to help her through.
Mm.
So Diana's always been keen to start this dahlia farm, and so with the help of her four boys, she's also got a mentor who lives in town called Colin Gardner, and he knows all about dahlias and is prepared to help her set up this dahlia farm. She's also got her wonderfully supportive family, her three sisters, Penny, Lara, and Angie, who are there every step of the way cheering her on, and her dad, Angus. But things don't always necessarily go to plan. And all of a sudden, Diana finds herself in a bit of a pickle and needing a bit of an extra helping hand. So entering from stage right, we have the very hunky, modelled slightly on Clark Kent from the TV series Superman that I remember from the 90s. And also a little bit like Jude Law in The Holiday, that lovely British rom-com. We've got Ned Gardner. So he is a single dad. He has two children, Doug and Willow. He's a local pharmacist, so he's been working different stints, 6 months here, 6 months there, 3 months in different pharmacies across Australia. He's really showing his kids what there is to see, and they never seem to stick around in one spot for too long. But all of a sudden, he needs to head back to the Western Districts of Victoria to help sort out his father's free-range egg farm. So there's a little bit of chemistry thrown in there, and Ned and Diana do cross paths. And what follows is a real story about flowers, about baking, about second chances. There's a real Brady Bunch theme to the family as well. And, you know, we've got a lot of different issues as well. So there's touching on important issues like grief and the grown not flown movement. I better get that right. About slow flowers and looking at where your flowers that you're buying from the supermarket or from the florist, where they're actually coming from. We're talking about family estrangement. We're looking at addiction and loss. So there's lots of lovely things that we can focus on, and there's the beautiful side of using nature to heal, but we do touch on some deeper issues as well as a lot of country charm.
And I have to say, it's great to see some of the familiar characters back. It's always great to see them and find out what's happening with them. How have you found revisiting these characters, and how did you choose that one to be your next book?
Yeah, it was really interesting because when I first started writing, the first story that I came up with was very distinctly Penny's story.
Yeah.
And that was Wildflower Ridge, and that came out in 2019 with Alan Unwin. And I knew I wanted to do a bit of a story of a girl who's got these wonderful country roots, but she's living in the city. And I've got so many friends that have also, you know, moved to the city after growing up in the country. And they're not necessarily that fussed about coming home, but sometimes circumstances intervene. So that was Penny's story. And when I decided to give her 3 sisters, I had to grapple with, well, which one goes first? And so the second story, because I felt like I'd featured in Wildflower Ridge, I felt like Angie had been one of my favourite sisters. You know, she was there, she was really bright and bubbly. So I decided to put the second book all about Angie. And Bottlebrush Creek tells the story of a fixer-upper. So that one's set in South Coast, whereas the other 3 books are all set in the Western Districts of Victoria, which is near the Grampians Mountain Range, which is a really beautiful spot, prime grazing land, lots of beautiful farms and rolling green hills and huge big red gum trees. And then the third story takes place in Bridgefield, which is the fictional town that the girls are all from. And that one's Lara's story. And I always knew that I wanted to do have a fun run involved in Lara's story because she's a long distance runner. And so that's one of the focuses in that story, as well as what it takes to keep community services viable in these small communities where often when your general store goes, then your post office goes, and the pub closes, and then it's kind of, you know, curtains down. So I wanted to look at that aspect of how important these small businesses are for local residents in country towns.
And you've had all the sisters now, I think. That's right, isn't it? What is next?
Well, Jackie, I'm currently madly on deadline working on my next year's manuscript, which I've given the working title A Place in the Vines. And if anyone knows any of my other books, they will know that the title never stays the title. So whatever I call it whilst I'm working on it, it doesn't necessarily mean the same that's on the shelves in 12 months' time. But that one's set in South Australia. So I've got a whole new cast of characters, a beautiful South Australian vineyard setting in the very popular district of Coonawarra, which is an area that I know quite well, close to where I grew up.
No, that sounds exciting. So all totally new characters? No cameos from...
Oh, well, look, I find it really hard to leave these McIntyre sisters alone. And I've had so many people that have been really sad about finishing the books. I just read a message today from a person who said that she's got Paperback Hill, but she's not reading it until she really, really, really can't bear not to know what happens, because She wants to hold on to that McIntyre family as long as she can. And I've got other people who are rereading the series. They've finished Paperback Hill and now they're going right back to the start and reading them all through again, which is lovely. So my readers find it hard to say goodbye to these characters, and I find it hard too. So I have maybe mentioned them just really briefly throughout the story. We'll see whether that gets past the editor's pen.
Yeah, yeah. And we've got lots of people watching, so just wanted to mention again that if you do have any questions, please type them in comments and I can read them out, and you'll have a chance to win a copy of Paperback Hill, thanks to Ellen and Unwin. So I've got Elliot, she says that Angus needs a book.
Yes, we have had a lot of people hoping that Angus will get his happily ever after. So Angus is the father figure. I guess he'd be in his late 60s and a really eligible bachelor. He was widowed. He was a widower. He lost his wife when the girls were teenagers. So he's been on his own for a long time. And when I actually wrote Paperback Hill, I had in mind that I would really give him a romantic subplot. And I started writing that. Actually, I think I started that in Magpie's Bend right at the end. There's a black tie ball. And I had him waltzing around the floor with a lady. I was going to carry that through and it just didn't quite work. So I thought, well, I'll hold off. And then again, when I got to Paperback Hill, I thought, now is Angus's time to shine. But again, he didn't find his happily ever after in Paperback Hill. So, you know, possibly there's room for more McIntyres down the track.
Yeah. And Elise wonders how you came up with the idea for Paperback Hill.
Yeah, thank you, Elise. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. It really is lovely. I can't see who's on there because I don't have the Facebook app up. I can only have the Zoom interface, but I'm glad that you're all tuning in, and do keep the questions coming. So Paperback Hill, I knew I wanted it to be about dahlias because I love dahlias myself. I find them absolutely fascinating. There's so many beautiful varieties. They grow so happily with just a little bit of care and attention. They're really rewarding flowers, and the way that they die down into these wrinkly brown tubers and then come up into these amazing blooms every season fascinates me. So I was doing some research into flower farming because I had said to my husband, I'd love to start a flower farm. How about we start a flower farm? I've got lots of dahlia tubers. We've got paddocks down here. You know, we could do that. And anyway, he did remind me that I'm writing a book a year. So possibly I need to, you know, prioritise the different things that I've already got going on, which is completely valid. So I thought, well, the next best thing is I can write about it and I can have my characters starting at Dahlia Farm. So there we were. And then with the locum pharmacist, I've got a beautiful sister-in-law who's a pharmacist. And I thought, well, that's great because I can ask her for any information that I need about the pharmacy world. And yeah, I liked the idea of exploring the way that, you know, you can really heal through nature and that beautiful power of sinking your hands into the dirt, you know, whether you've had a really crap day and you just get out there and you do some weeding or some digging, half an hour in the garden, and it's a really good therapy session, I find personally, and I know there's lots of other people that do as well. So I thought, well, Diana's going through a lot in her life, and our main male character, Ned Gardner, he's also had a pretty rough trot too. So let's see whether maybe we can have that healing kind of taking place in the background, as well as, you know, lots of other little factors going on in their lives. But it'd be interesting to see where that led.
Yeah, yeah. And Sharon wonders what you like to read and if there might have been something lately you've read you want to recommend to us.
Thank you, Sharon. I am always reading and I just love it. And I can always have a nice big stack of books by my bedside table that I look at and think, oh, I'm looking forward to getting to you. And then I finish a book and I kind of treasure it for a little while. So one of the books that I finished just recently is The Angry Women's Choir by Meg Bignell.
I've got that on my pile to read soon.
Yeah, don't leave it on there too long, Jackie. It's a really great read. It's set in Tasmania, as is Meg. It's a really interesting look at the way that women often let their identities go in favour of motherhood and the lengths that sometimes they'll go to try and regain that identity. and they have some really crafty ways for getting their message across, and this Angry Women's Choir is fantastic. So I'm actually giving away a copy of this one in my newsletter, which comes out this weekend.
Yep.
People like the sound of that,
great.
and I really enjoyed it. Lots of laughs, lots of poignant moments as well. I had a few tears whilst I was reading this one. And then in terms of books that I'm really looking forward to, I've got two that have come in the last week that I'm super excited about. The first one is Claire Fletcher, and this is her debut with Penguin Random House. It's called 5 Bush Weddings, and it's about a wedding photographer. It just sounds really sweet. Even from the opening paragraph, we've got, I'm learning something new. I didn't know that it's a real Queensland thing that when the song Eagle Rock comes on, that people will drop their pants and do a dance.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I didn't know that, but I've just found that out by having a quick flick through this. So I'm looking forward to reading Claire's new book that's out this week. And then another one that came out this week, which just arrived in my mailbox as well, is The Brothers. And this is by a lady called Selena Hinton, and it's based in Southwest Victoria where I live. So for me, finding a book that's got a local setting is really cool as well. So this one's a murder mystery. It's got a real crime vibe to it. I'm looking forward to picking that up. It sounds very atmospheric. And of course, you know, when I'm writing here, I'm looking at the beach as well. So I know it's a very similar stretch of coastline to where I live, and I'm familiar with the town that it's set in. So I'm very much looking forward to that one. That one's out with HarperCollins this week too.
Well, thanks for sharing them. They're all three of them are actually ones I've got in my pile to read very soon. So yeah, hopefully they are wonderful reads. They look like they are. I've got a comment from Julie, who I think you might know, Julie. She says she has seen so many people say how much they loved Diana's story, and one of their favourites, and only today someone mentioned to her how much they loved Diana.
Oh, that is so lovely. I think I do know that, Julie. That's very nice. One of the best things about being a writer is getting the feedback from people that have read the book and loved it, or they've read a scene and said, oh, my grandmother would grow dahlias, and reading that really reminded me of her. There's so many beautiful little comments from people that certain parts of the book that resonate with them. So whether it's Santa Claus arriving at the Christmas party on his Harley Davidson, or whether it's a cooking mishap, and there's a few funny little incidents throughout the book relating to cooking. So it's really nice to be able to hear from people that they're enjoying it. I love writing these books, and I'm nothing without my readers. So thanks to everyone who does, you know, take interest in the books.
And the other thing I was going to say, like you mentioned quite a bit about cooking and that as well in your books, and the yo-yos were featured in this one, and I do remember your yo-yos as well from your Instagram account. So yeah, it's good how you weave a little bit of your own personal things in your book as well. I really love that.
Well, thank you, Jackie. It just comes naturally to me to be able to put in things that I'm interested in, whether they're topics that I want to explore, or little memories that, you know, make me smile. There's a cat in the story called Santa Claus, and we had a very similar incident with a fly-blown kitten when I was a little girl. So, you know, these little things that my publisher, Annette, will say, Maya, where on earth do you come up with these ideas from? And some of them are lived, some of them are stories that other people have told me and said, you have to put that into a book, Maya. And other things are just complete imagination. There's lots of that as well. But it is nice to put in familiar little stories and anecdotes I know will make someone smile.
And Judith says she loves the way that you weave some of yourself in your books. She is so looking forward to reading Paperback Hill and absorbing the background of the blooms. And she does have a question, which I think I probably know the answer to, but she wonders if you have a favourite flower.
Judith, that's a really tricky one. I do kind of alternate. Some days I'll feel like my favourite flower is the dahlias. Other times, if I'm thinking about the all-rounder aspect, I'll think about the roses, because they have that beautiful scent. Well, not all roses, but a lot of roses have that beautiful scent, and they do have that double flush. So they've got the flowers in the springtime as well as the summertime. And then sometimes I will pick myself a bunch of cosmos, and they'll just be you know, in the breeze, doing this,
Mm.
so whimsical, and the sun will be setting and the light will be shining through the cosmos. And I'm thinking, you know, how can I not love cosmos? And they'll go straight to the top of the favourites list. And then I planted a whole heap of zinnias end of last winter. I put in packets of seeds, put about 4 packets, and I got the most beautiful display of zinnias. I've never seen zinnias as beautiful. I had pink ones up near my dahlias. I had multicolored ones down near the roses, and they just blew me away. So it alternates on any given day, depending on what type of mood I'm in. I've got lots of favourites, and I love collecting the seeds and using them for giveaways too, because, you know, I know that other people really appreciate the idea of growing something that's been tried and true in someone else's garden.
And Elise wonders how you plan your writing day and make sure that you still have time for gardening.
Well, it depends where I'm up to in the writing process. So at the moment, luckily, one of my biggest deadlines is right now in the thick of winter. So there's not too much to do in the garden. I could be doing stuff like improving the soil, or there's lots of weeds I've noticed starting to creep in. But thankfully for me, my busiest major deadline is in wintertime, when there's not as much to do in the garden. But generally my process is I get the kids off to school, I'm at my desk at 9 o'clock writing. I try and get as much done as I can before lunchtime, and then I'll try and do stuff like my blogging and writing up book reviews and website stuff and newsletter stuff and replying to emails after lunch. And then I can get out in the garden and reward myself with an hour or two once the main work is done. But then, having said that, once the kids get home from school as well, it's a really good time for me to get out in the garden, because it encourages them to be outside and not on a screen or a device. So I can usually rope them into a few little tasks, like I can pay them $1 to pull a bucket of weeds, which is a really good deal when you've got 2 acres of garden like myself. And weekends, I generally, unless I'm on deadline, I don't usually work too much on weekends. And so that's when a lot of my gardening happens too.
And Chanel wonders if you could share with us what the best and the worst thing has been about your publishing journey so far.
Oh, good question, Chanel. I think the best thing is being able to see my books in print and to see them. I think my number one thing that I wanted to see when I first signed that publishing contract was to see the spine of my book on a library shelf. I didn't really care that much about the front cover. I just wanted to see it stacked up there with all the books at the library. And the worst thing, that's tricky. There's probably one of the trickiest things would be that self-doubt. And that seems to creep in. Even though I've got 4 books published and beautiful reviews and bestseller lists, and they've been nominated for different awards, I always get to a stage in a manuscript that I think, oh no, I'm not sure if this book's going to work. Might have to ditch this one and start again, which of course when you've written 100,000 words is a horrific prospect. And I haven't done that so far, but I definitely have moments where I think, oh no, no one's going to like this book. And I still remember calling my editor when I sent through Magpie's Bend, and I said, no, this is not going to work. I'm going to have to retract it. We're going to have to do something different. And she said, Maya, it's great. I love it. It's really good. But you get yourself so worked up worrying about, well, what about this bit that's a bit different to the last book, and people might not like how I did that differently. And then, so the same things happened with every single book. And luckily it is just that little devil on your shoulder that tells you, oh no, this is not right, or you could have done that better, or how about you explore such and such path. I think it's just part and parcel of writing. And I've heard that it doesn't diminish the more books that you've got out. It doesn't necessarily follow a linear path. So I think that's probably one of the trickiest things, knowing that I guess you just have to have confidence in the work and trust that you've put the hard yards in, and that it's a story that hopefully some parts of it will resonate with the readers.
Yeah. And I'm sure you get lots of feedback from readers. Just wondering if there's anything maybe strange or a bit quirky that you could share with us that you heard from a reader.
I'm not sure about strange or quirky, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But I do love hearing, I had a letter from a lovely lady, Wendy, today, just saying that she listened to all the audiobooks and really enjoyed it, and her and her husband listened to them together. So that was
Okay,
really
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
And then I'll get different messages from people who grew up in the areas, or they used to holiday in the areas that the books are set in. And so for them, it's a lovely little trip down memory lane, because, you know, they haven't lived in Western Victoria or Southwest Victoria for 20, 30, 40 years, but they still have those beautiful memories of coming back to the area from their childhood. And the books just evoke that for them. So I think that's lovely.
And if you could be one of your characters out of any of your books for a day, who would you choose and why?
Well, I think it's kind of like choosing my favourite character, which again is difficult, and like choosing my favourite flower, and it changes per day. But I'm usually fixated on the character that I'm working on currently. So if I follow that rationale, then that means that probably I'd be wanting to spend a day in the vineyards with my character for next year's book, April. But I'm still feeling very connected to Diana, seeing that she's only just recently out, and seeing she's there with my dahlias. So
and
possibly,
you wanted to start a dahlia farm.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, the garden's looking a bit miserable because it is winter. So perhaps I'd like to be there when the dahlias are all in full bloom and the roses are looking beautiful with Diana at the moment.
Well, thanks so much for talking to me. It's always great to talk to you.
It's lovely to be here, Jackie. And again, as I said, it's a real treat to be able to talk with people that love books as much as me, and people that help celebrate and spread the word about Australian books. I know that you've got a global audience as well, which is really lovely. And my books are available internationally too, so people can download them through Audible internationally if they like the talking books. And I've got a friend who lives in Sweden, and I met her overseas when we were both 20 and traveling, and she listens to them. So she doesn't speak English on a regular basis.
Oh, but okay, yeah.
She can understand it when she's listening to it. So it's really beautiful that, you know, my friend who I used to be a nanny with now listens to the books. And
yeah, that's great. And can you tell people watching how they can keep up to date with what's happening with you?
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. So the newsletter, I have a newsletter that goes out at the first weekend of every month. So the next newsletter will go out this Saturday or Sunday, depending on when I get it all finished. And I always have different book reviews in there. I usually always try and have a giveaway as well, which is usually a book. Those are for Australian residents only, though. I have recipes that I share. I speak about different podcasts that I'm enjoying, as well as books that I'm reading and recommending, ways that people can catch up with me for events, because I'm heading across to Western Australia next week. I'm very excited about that. And I'll be at the Corlini Arts Centre and also the Duncraig Library, talking in conversation with Fiona Lowe for the first one and for Sasha Wasley and the second one. So if people want to find out about the events, I've got my website as well, which is just mayalinnell.com. And people can find me on Instagram. I love sharing pictures from my garden, from my kitchen, of what happens behind the scenes with the writing of the books. We've got some beautiful little lambs at the moment that we're bottle feeding. So I share lots of pictures of lambs for them. So if people want a bit of cheerfulness and country charm in their day, then, you know, come over, find my page at maya.linnell.writes. And I look forward to keeping people's company.
No, thanks for sharing that. And thanks everyone who joined in. We had some really great questions. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. Stay well, and I hope everyone stays warm and gets to read lots more books.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everyone.